I was once a heavy drug addict and alcoholic. This is many years ago. I haven't had a drink for over 12 years now. Um, and I, I can see very clearly why, the few reasons why I was the way I was. I grew up, I was a very sensitive kid. Uh, I just remember being so sensitive to what my parents were doing and saying, and to music and movies and all these influences. My emotions were very sensitive, and I felt everything and sort of held on to everything. And I was so innocent, I really didn't mean harm in any way, but I took everything personally. Anything my parents felt bad, it was my fault. My parents were upset with me, it was my fault. It was just all my fault. And because my parents were, especially my mother and stepfather, they were very unhappy. They themselves were highly traumatized people, never happy, always irritated, always just smoking their cigarettes, drinking their coffee, struggling with their, um, subpar jobs and life, and always complaining about money and everything. And I took this all on. It seemed like they didn't want me there. It seemed like I wasn't allowed to express myself, otherwise they would get very hurt, or they would, I wouldn't be able to say what I think or have any emotions. Otherwise, I'd be teased, or I'd be punished in some way. Very strict, very unhappy people, and I took that on and blamed myself for it. Because I was never allowed to communicate, I never felt loved, I never felt accepted. Because of this, I had the worst self-esteem. I grew up into being a teenager and adulthood with just thinking I was nothing, thinking everything I had to say was hopeless, that I had no, that people, it was not worth listening to anything I had to say, that the way I felt was awful, that everything I said was wrong, just because of the way I was treated all those years when I was young. And there was a lot of pain inside, in my stomach, so much sadness and tension in the body, the anger in the face and the jaw and the neck, and the tension in the head. And I used to walk around like this, my shoulders constantly up. I was just so reactive to everything. I would get angry, I would get sad, I would run away, I would be shy, anxious, agoraphobia, social anxiety, all that stuff. I was just an anxious, traumatized mess. And that's what it is. I was traumatized, and I found a solution to the issue, which was I would take drugs. I would drink, the problems would go away. I would take drugs, they would go away. And that in itself is a perfect solution. It just, it was perfect. Obviously, when you become addicted to drugs, it creates a whole new other set of problems where the drugs stop working, you need new drugs, you need to get the drugs, you're coming down off the drugs, this whole new realm of problems. And also the urges that taking drugs take, that you've then got to start to satisfy the urge, which becomes trauma in itself. So you're satisfying the trauma that you carry around all the time, and then you're trying to satisfy the trauma of when a drug is wearing off. A good example is coffee. When it's wearing off, it's a little bit of trauma that you can relieve by taking more coffee. That is for every drug. So this story, I wasn't a bad kid. I never meant harm to anyone. Very sensitive. I believe I was a very kind kid. Friendly and social even. And even people, I don't think many people who I knew from that time in my life watch these videos, but if you met someone who knew me when I was in primary school and high school, they would never have told you that I would possibly be the type of person who would become as a heavy a drug addict as I was. Just because I was, they probably could see I had problems, self-esteem issues and emotional problems, but I was intelligent. I succeeded really well in what I chose to do at that time in my life. Um, and or a lot of things that drove that success was trauma as well, because I wanted attention and all that stuff. But still, I had the intelligence and the awareness to apply myself to certain things. So I wasn't a bad person at all. And I when I was taking drugs and when I was heavily addicted, I did bad things. Not terrible, but I ripped people off, I lied, and all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't many times, and generally I was a good person. I was sharing, always looking for a good time, helping those around me, all that stuff. And this is not just my story. I will guess that it's most addicts. The people I used to hang around, some pretty heavy addicts, they were intelligent people who had just had a shitty life, who had just had a shitty deal when they were kids, and they were never taught to deal with that trauma. They were never shown how to face the trauma, how to release the emotions and the tension, how to view the thoughts and see them consciously in order to tear them away from them, their connection to the actual sensations, and start breaking that down and start getting a handle on this stuff. They were never helped, and they just had shitty parents or whatever happened to them, things far worse than what happened to me. And these people just found the perfect solution, which was drugs. And in this way, these people should never be judged, because they were exactly like me. They were very intelligent, very sensitive, very insightful, very interesting, and good people. But they were just sensitive people who had fucking got traumatized, and it wasn't their fault. They're traumatized by traumatized people, and trying to be helped by people who are themselves traumatized, like the whole medical industry and whatever. There's just no help for these people, like there was no help for me. I was lucky enough to fall into places that I fell, and to have the type of personality that I have in order to find solutions to a lot of the issues. But these drug addicts that we see on the streets, I mean, it's really, I'm all for taking responsibility, but these people really, in terms of the trauma, I mean, I could never blame myself for what happened when I was a kid, and I would never blame them for what happened to them when they were kids. And they've just made a choice which is the perfect choice, in a sense, which is to take drugs, which cures the issue immediately. We all do it. Look at yourself. You feel uncomfortable, so you turn on the television. You feel empty inside, so you eat ice cream. You sometimes feel lonely, so you work super hard. You buy things because you feel empty. You feel like you're a loser, so you go buy a fancy car, so you look cool, wear nice clothes, all that stuff. It's the same thing. It's just the addicts are smarter than that, and they've made a better choice, in a sense, a more complete choice, which is completely annihilate the bad feeling by covering it up with drugs, rather than, run around trying to make a big business, trying to cover up the fact that you're lonely by creating a multinational, multi-million dollar business that just gradually is destroying nature, destroying the planet. What's worse, a heroin addict or that? Who knows? How can we ever know? But that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I mean, look at these drug addicts and see that they really are just like you and me. These sensitive people who just really copped a raw deal. Thanks, guys.